Happy FriYAY! I'm so excited. Mrs. Fortelka and Miss J asked me to lead the FriYAY activities. This week is Cinderella, so we get to do this really fun watercolor explosion with the Cinderella silhouette castle on top of it. I'm pretty excited, so let's get creative. So what you need is paper. Cardstock works the best. Watercolor paper works good. Computer paper will be fine. It's just gotta watch how much water you use. Watercolor and brushes, water of course, black marker, pencil, scissors, and finally glue. And you can use either stick glue. I use liquid glue. First thing I do is I tape down the edges. This helps so that the paper doesn't bend, because as the water gets the paper wet, it's going to start folding and bending. This also makes a nice border around your paper, depending on what kind of tape you use. I'm using this frog tape. You can use painter tape, and you can use regular Scotch tape if you want. Scotch tape just might rip the paper as you pull it off. So what we are going to do first is we need to get our water and our watercolors out. And before we even start watercoloring, we're going to just start putting lots of water on our paper. And we want puddles. Again, if you have computer paper, watch how much you're putting on there, but we just want it gathering in one space. I'm then going to take a lot of my ink, pigment I mean, and then press it in, or just tap on those puddle areas. And then I'm gonna add more water. I do need to get my pigments wet before I do this. So also notice how the pigment likes to flow with the water. So then you get these like little explosions. So if you are to expand the water or lead the water somewhere else, you're gonna get the pigment wanting to flow as well. So again, I put a little puddle on there, and then I just take a color. And if I think that the color is too faint, I can just go and add more pigment. If I'm just getting streaks of color, then I can go ahead and add more water. To see how I'm adding more water and the pigment is wanting to follow where the water is. It's almost like a river flowing, and the pigment is like sediment or dirt wanting to follow. So this is really where you guys can play around. You can, mix color if you want, see what happens. Notice that some colors look better mixing than other colors. You don't want to mix, if you don't want to get browns, you don't want to mix complementary colors. And that's, remember, Christmas, Broncos, and the Vikings. So Vikings is yellow and purple, that'll make brown. Christmas is red and green. If you mix those, you'll get brown. And I said Broncos. Yes, Broncos, which is orange and blue, that'll get brown. So if you start looking at where my orange and blue is mixing, it's actually going to start looking brown. But if you keep it kind of separate, it looks pretty great. If you are getting rips in your paper, that just means you're using a lot of water, too much water. So just hold up on the water a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and just fill in the rest of my paper, slowly putting explosions of color everywhere. I'm slowly joining some of the water areas together, letting them flow in and meet each other. And just, again, have fun with it. If you feel like you messed up, go ahead and start again. But before you continue on, you need to make sure this dries completely. Keep it taped to the table until it is dry completely. As we let that dry, we're gonna make our castle, and our castle is made out of just shapes, and I know you guys can do these shapes. I know you can do a rectangle, you can do a tall, skinny rectangle, you can do triangles, you can do circles, and finally trapezoids. Trapezoids are short, and then slanted lines, and then a longer line. And then an upside down trapezoid is the long line on top, slants going down, and then the shorter line on the bottom. That's all you need to make this castle. So here we go. We're gonna start with a large rectangle in the center. And then we're gonna put a long trapezoid on that so that the long edge is hanging off. So it kind of looks like a house with the roof pieces hanging off. So there's my long trapezoid. Now on each side of that rectangle, I'm going to put other rectangles. These are starting to be the spires or the side of the castle. On both of those, I'm going to add upside down trapezoids. And then on those, I'm going to add triangles with circles on top. I'm then going to add a second tier, which just means a larger level up top, but it has to be smaller. So it's a big rectangle again, but smaller than the first one we made. I'm then going to make tall rectangles for the towers at the top. So I'm making them a little different. So I'm making one skinnier and taller than the other. I also want towers on the side of each of those, not going as tall. I want the middle ones the tallest. And then again, they're different sizes, but it doesn't matter. On top of each of those, you can do a triangle. You can also do rectangles on that to make it look like there's like a little edge up there or a room. And then of course circles on top of the triangles. And then wherever you put a triangle, it's just the roof. You can also put more trapezoids. And then another triangle. This is my really tall triangle because it's the top of the castle. Another upside down trapezoid, a rectangle, and a triangle. Just to make variation in my towers so they don't all look the same. I'm going to make a large arch for the entryway of the castle. Now you guys can stop here, but I also did little windows, and you can leave those just blank or you can cut them out. Once I'm happy with my castle, I went and took my black marker and I outlined it all, and then I filled it in. This makes the silhouette because the light source is behind the castle. So we're not gonna see the castle. It's just going to look like a black shape, and that's what a silhouette is. So now we have our dry watercolor. So you notice that there looks like puddles of color, but it's dried out. It's because the pigment almost acts like dust. And so as the water spreads, it gathers around the edge of the puddle. So that is a cool effect. We're gonna also take the tape off and see how it makes that nice, beautiful line. If you don't like the edge there, go ahead and cut that off. That's totally fine. You might have to cut it off if you use Scotch tape because it has a tendency to rip the paper. So not a big deal. What's nice about cutting it out is you get to play with where you want to place the castle. Do I want the paper long ways? Do I want it landscape? You know, I get to play where I want it. I get to play where the brighter colors get put through. That's why I'm having the darker colors on the bottom so I can cover some of that up. So what I'm going to do is I have liquid glue. I'm going to take a paintbrush. I like doing it this way better. And I like brushing a nice even layer on my paper. Also notice I am doing this on another piece of paper so I don't get glue all over the table. I just get it on another piece of paper and I can just throw that away. Now again, I'm just doing a nice even layer on my castle. I'm now going to gently place my castle where I want it. And I'm going to carefully just pat it down and use pressure on my fingers. If some of the glue has come onto the top surface, that is a-okay. It clears dry. You just don't want to be ripping your paper because it gets too wet. Pat it down nice and easy, and then you just let it dry. Now, if you used a paintbrush to put your glue down, go ahead and wash that off with warm water and soap. And there you have it. I hope you guys really enjoyed the watercolor explosion and the Cinderella castle silhouette. I really hope you guys had fun with this. I hope you guys played around. See you guys next week. Later.